The girl no one could see Zira walked through the crowded human spaceport, but no one noticed her. She was not wearing any disguise. She didn't need to. Her species, the Velari, had evolved a special ability, light-bending skin. To human eyes, she was invisible, like air. She could stand right in front of someone and they would never know. For Zira, this invisibility was normal. It was her shield, her comfort, and her curse. She had watched humans for weeks now. She was curious about them, the way they laughed, the way they touched, the way they fought and forgave so easily. Her people said humans were dangerous, unpredictable. But Zira didn't believe that. At least not all of it. She stood in front of a food stall now. A young human couple argued over which snack to try. Zira tilted her head. Their voices were loud. Their emotions were raw. So different from her cold, quiet home. Suddenly, someone passed through her space. A tall human man brushed against her shoulder. She stepped back, startled. But he kept walking, unaware. Just like always. Zira sighed and turned away. She began walking toward the engineering sector. There was a human she liked watching there. A repair technician who always worked late shifts. He was different, quiet, focused. His hands were rough from tools, but his eyes looked kind. His name, she had learned from his ID badge, was Jake Morgan. Tonight, like every night, Jake sat near the lower docks, fixing a broken drone. Sparks flew as he welded a loose wire. Zira stood nearby, watching silently. Then, something strange happened. Jake stopped working. He slowly turned his head and looked right at her. Zira didn't move. She froze completely. Maybe he wasn't looking at her. Maybe it was coincidence. But then Jake smiled and held something out in his hand. A small, glowing chip. "You dropped this," he said calmly. Zira's heart raced. She hadn't dropped anything, and no one had ever spoken to her like that. She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back, her body trembling. He kept his hand out, waiting. Zira turned and ran. Fast. Her cloaking still active, she moved through the corridors like wind. She didn't stop until she reached the quiet tunnels of the alien quarters. Once she was alone, she pressed her back against the wall and tried to slow her breathing. He saw me. That wasn't possible. Her cloak had never failed. No human should be able to see a Velari, especially not one as careful as her. Was it an accident? A trick? Maybe he had guessed she was there? But no. His eyes had locked with hers. His voice had spoken directly, to her. She remembered his tone, soft, calm, and not afraid. Her mind was full of questions now. How did he see her? What kind of human was he? And why didn't he seem surprised? Back in the human section, Jake stood up and looked at the empty air in front of him. He smiled to himself. "She's curious," he whispered. He placed the chip back on the table and got back to work. But his mind wasn't on the drone anymore. He had seen her many times before. Shadows moving when nothing was there. Heat traces on scanners. Footsteps with no body. And once he had felt the lightest brush against his hand. He didn't report it. He didn't tell anyone. Because deep inside he didn't want to scare her away. In her hidden room, Zira sat on the floor, knees close to her chest. Her people would never believe this. They taught that humans were blind to Velari, dull and simple creatures. But Jake had seen her, not just with his eyes, but truly seen her. She touched her face gently, as if checking if she was still real. Maybe she had made a mistake coming here. Or maybe this was the beginning of something. Eyes that shouldn't see Zira didn't sleep that night. She sat in complete silence inside her hidden chamber, deep within the alien sector of the colony. Shadows danced across the walls, but her mind was stuck on only one thing. Jake Morgan had seen her. Not maybe. Not accidentally. He had looked at her, spoken to her, and even held something out to her hand. It wasn't possible. It shouldn't be. The Valari had ruled this trick for centuries. True. Invisibility. Not tech, not illusion. A natural defense born from fear. Evolution gave them survival by being unseen. So how did this human break the rule? Zaira needed answers. She wrapped her cloak tighter and left her room. The station's lights dimmed to night mode. Quiet, empty, perfect. She didn't plan to speak to Jake. She just wanted to test him, see if it was real. Jake worked late again, same spot, same drone. But tonight he kept glancing around, like he was waiting for someone. Zaira stood at the far corner of the docking bay, completely still. Let's see if he sees me now. He didn't look. She moved 10 feet closer. Still, nothing. Another few steps. His wrench slipped from his hand. He looked up. Straight at her. Zaira flinched. Her skin sparked faintly with fear, but she didn't move. Jake stared for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a chocolate bar. He broke it in half, left one piece beside him on the bench and said, "If you're going to keep watching me, you might as well have something sweet." Zaira blinked. He couldn't be serious. She waited until he left. Then she stepped forward and picked up the candy. She didn't eat it. Not yet. She just held it like proof, evidence that he really saw her, that this wasn't a dream. But she wasn't ready to let him know that yet. Not yet. The next night, she returned again. This time she made noise. She knocked over a small crate. Jake looked over immediately. "You're back," he said, as if she were an old friend. Zaira didn't answer. She just moved silently around the room, circling him like a shadow. "Are you always this quiet?" he asked. Then he smiled. "That's okay. I'm used to quiet." He kept working. She stayed for an hour, just watching, just wondering. Back in her quarters, Zaira sent a secure message to the Valari High Monitor. She asked a single question. Has any human in history ever seen one of us while cloaked? The reply was fast. Impossible. If someone claims that, eliminate the human. Immediately, it is a threat. Her hands trembled. But Jake didn't feel like a threat. Why then did her people fear someone who could see them? What did they know that she didn't? The next night, Jake spoke without looking up. "You don't have to hide. I won't hurt you." Zaira felt something tighten in her chest. Fear. Or was it something else? She stepped forward. Still invisible. Still quiet. Jake finally looked up and said the words that shook her again. "I think you're lonely." Zaira's breath caught. He wasn't wrong, but how could he know? Just then a loud alarm blared across the docking bay. Jake jumped. "Emergency power drain, must be a breach," he muttered, grabbing his tools and running toward the generator room. Zaira followed. When they reached the core panel, Jake bent down to open the circuit. Then, without warning, the power went out. Darkness swallowed the hallway. Red emergency lights blinked on. In that flashing glow, Jake turned again, and this time, he saw her full silhouette. Not just a shimmer, not a ghost. Her face, her shape, her eyes. And he whispered softly, almost with wonder, "You're real." Zaira didn't run this time. She stood perfectly still. Something inside her had changed. She didn't understand why, but she wanted to know how this human could see what no one else could. And more than that, she wanted to know why he wasn't afraid. The truth about her species, Zaira sat alone in the darkness of her quarters, the half-eaten chocolate bar still in her hand. For the first time in her life, she wasn't sure who she was anymore. She had been trained since childhood. Humans are dangerous, never be seen, never connect. They destroy what they don't understand. But Jake hadn't tried to destroy anything. He had looked at her like she was real, not a threat, not a shadow, not a mistake. And worst of all, it didn't feel wrong. It felt like freedom, Zyra activated her hollow diary. A soft blue glow filled the small room. She played back her childhood lessons. A hologram of her old mentor, Elder Tylan, flickered to life. The Velari survived because we are unseen. The moment we are seen, we become targets. The humans are not like us. They crave attention, not silence. They fear what they cannot control. If they ever see you, they will destroy you. Zyra paused the recording. She remembered Elder Tylan's cold voice. She used to believe every word, but now she remembered Jake's voice instead. You don't have to hide. And even more dangerous, I think you're lonely. Zyra didn't feel fear when he said it. She felt understood. Later that night, she connected to the Velari archive, a forbidden database that recorded all hidden interactions with humans. Accessing it was illegal without permission. But Zyra didn't care anymore. She needed answers. The archive opened a file. Project Ghostlight. It was classified, but her cloaking pass allowed silent entry. She read quickly, and what she found made her skin go cold. Over 300 years ago, during first contact, several humans reported seeing Velari scouts. Each of those humans was later reported missing or eliminated. Zyra's breath stopped. Another file opened. One human showed long-term visual perception of a Velari. That human was captured, dissected, studied. Conclusion: humans with the ability to see us are a threat. Destroy on detection. Zyra shut the file. Her hands trembled. Her species had been hunting people like Jake, not because they were evil, but because they could see the truth. She thought of Jake again. He didn't try to trap her, didn't call security, didn't even ask who she was. He only looked at her like she mattered. Zyra stood and looked at her reflection, barely visible even to herself. I don't want to live invisible forever, she whispered. The next night, Zyra returned to the docking bay. Jake was there again, working on a new device. This time she didn't stand in the shadows. She stepped forward slowly and lowered her cloak. Her skin shimmered and her body slowly became visible, like mist forming into shape. Jake looked up, and for the first time, he saw all of her silver hair, her glowing teal eyes, the faint luminescence on her skin. He didn't gasp. He didn't run. He just stared, and then he said, "You're beautiful." Zyra almost forgot how to breathe. No one had ever called her that, not even her own people. She sat down beside him, still unsure, still cautious, but Jake didn't ask questions. He just handed her a tool. Want to help? Zyra looked at it like it was a key, because maybe it was. She took it with a small nod, and for the first time in her life, she chose to be seen. But far above them, on a hidden Velari observation ship, red lights blinked. Sensors had picked up something, a full cloak drop on a human station. The signal was logged and flagged. Velari detected. Visible. Possible human breach. Dispatch hunters. Back on the station, Zyra smiled just a little as she tightened a bolt beside Jake. She didn't know what was coming, but deep inside, she felt something new. Not fear, not invisibility, but something powerful. Something dangerous to her people, something beautiful to her. Hope. The first touch Zyra had never been this close to a human before, not while visible, not while unguarded. She sat beside Jake in the quiet docking bay, her glowing skin dim in the soft work lights. Her heart raced even though her face stayed calm. He didn't stare. He didn't ask questions. He just smiled and passed her a tool, like this was normal, like she belonged here. Zyra's fingers brushed against his as she took the spanner. She flinched. Not because it hurt, but because it was the first time in her life she had touched someone who wasn't afraid. No gloves, no barriers. No trembling hands, just warm, human skin. Jake noticed her pause. "You okay?" he asked softly. Zira looked down at her hand. The skin still tingled. "You're not afraid?" she asked. Jake shook his head. "Why should I be?" She hesitated. Then she said, "Because I'm not supposed to exist." He looked at her carefully, like trying to understand a puzzle no one else had solved. "Maybe," he said, "you exist because someone finally wanted to see you." Those words cut deep, like truth. The next hour passed slowly. They didn't talk much, just worked, shared tools, shared space. No one came to this part of the station at night, and for once, Zira wasn't hiding. Not her face, not her voice, not even her fear. But the peace didn't last. Far above, the Velari hunter ship moved into low orbit. Inside, two cloaked figures studied Zira's signal.
Subject Z13 has broken concealment. Direct contact with human male. Protocol 02. Immediate correction. Terminate the human? Only if he resists. Bring the girl back alive. She'll be punished. They prepared their weapons. In knee.
Silence. Back on the station, Jake leaned back and wiped sweat from his brow. "You're a quick learner," he said with a smile. Zira tilted her head. "You treat me like I'm normal." Jake laughed lightly. "You're better than normal." Zira stared at him. "Why are you like this?" He paused, then said, "I don't know. Maybe because I've always felt invisible too." Zira blinked. She didn't expect that. "You?" Jake nodded. "Yeah. Everyone's always busy, loud, fast. No one really looks anymore. But when I felt something watching me, I paid attention. Because I know how that feels." Zira's voice dropped to a whisper. "To not be seen?" He nodded again. Zira looked away. Her eyes burned, but not from anger. From something else. Something she had no word for. She stood slowly, her glowing eyes meeting his. "Thank you," she said. Then gently, she reached out and touched his face. Her hand was cold. His skin was warm. It was the first time she had touched someone and meant it, the first time she wanted to. At that exact moment, a red laser dot appeared on Jake's shoulder. Zira's eyes widened. She shoved him hard. A split second later, a sharp electric dart struck the metal wall behind him. Jake hit the floor with a grunt. "What the hell?" Zira didn't answer. She grabbed his arm and pulled him behind a crate. "Don't move," she whispered. Another dart flew past them, sizzling into the ground. Then, silence. Jake looked at her, breathing hard. "What's going on?" Zira's cloak flared. "They've come for me." "Who?" "My people." She peeked over the crate. Two cloaked Velari hunters stood at the far door, their outlines barely visible. Only their glowing weapons gave them away. "Z13, surrender now. You have violated the invisibility accord. This human has seen too much." Zira's voice trembled. "They'll kill you." Jake clenched his jaw. "Let them try." Zira shook her head. "You don't understand. You're human. You're supposed to be blind." Jake stared at her. "But I'm not, and I won't run." She looked at him, truly looked. And in that second she realized he was the first being in the galaxy to ever fight, not to look away. Zira took a deep breath. Then she did something she'd never done before. She stood up, fully visible. Right, in front of the hunters. "No." The hunters hesitated. She raised her hands. "This human is under my protection. You are not authorized to make that claim." One hunter replied coldly. "I don't care about authorization anymore." She said, "He sees me, and I see him, that's enough." Jake stepped beside her, not behind her, not hiding. He looked straight at the hunters and said, "If she goes, I go." Zira felt it again, that thing in her chest, not fear, not confusion, courage. The hunters arrive. The silence in the docking bay was heavy. Zira stood tall, glowing faintly, her arms stretched in front of Jake. Behind her, he stood firm, refusing to move. Across the bay, the two Valari hunters stepped forward, weapons aimed, not shaking, not unsure. They had done this before. Z13, the lead. Hunter said flatly, "You've chosen exile. Step away from the human, return with us. He will be erased quietly." Jake whispered. "Erased?" Sierra didn't take her eyes off them. "It means killed." Jake clenched his fists. "Not happening." Sierra's voice rose. "He's not a threat. He never tried to hurt me. He just saw me. That's the problem." The second, Hunter growled. "He saw what should never be seen. If more humans learn they can detect us, our species is doomed." Zaira shook her head. "Then maybe it's time they did see us." Both hunters raised their weapons. "Final warning." Jake stepped forward beside her. "You'll have to go through me." Zaira looked at him, shocked. He smiled faintly. "You protected me. My turn." Suddenly, both hunters fired, but Zaira moved faster. Her body flickered, turned semi-invisible, and she leapt forward, kicking one weapon aside. The dart flew harmlessly into the wall. Jake tackled the other hunter, grabbing his arm and twisting it, but humans weren't built like Valari. The hunter shoved him hard, slamming him into a storage crate. Zaira screamed, rushing to him, but the first hunter grabbed her wrist. "You were one of us," he hissed. "I still am," she whispered. "But you forgot what that means." She twisted free and used her visibility against him. Her skin flashed bright, blinding him for a second. Jake, bruised but standing, grabbed a wrench and swung. Clang! The hunter collapsed. The second hunter stood alone now, facing them both. He looked at Zaira with something close to sadness. "You'll bring the humans down on us," Zaira said quietly. "Maybe. But hiding forever isn't life. Then you've chosen death." He raised his weapon again, but this time Jake fired first. A stolen dart gun hissed from his hands, and the hunter dropped, stunned. Silence returned. Zaira breathed hard. Jake was bleeding from the lip. The docking bay was a mess of sparks and smoke, but they were still alive. Jake dropped the weapon. "So, do Valari usually hunt their own?" Zaira shook her head slowly. "Only the ones who break the rules." Jake smiled bitterly. "Then I guess we're both rule breakers now." Zaira didn't smile. Her heart was too heavy. "They won't stop, Jake. That was only a scout team. More will come." "Let them," he said. She turned toward him. "You don't get it. They won't just come for me. They'll come for anyone who knows." Jake took a deep breath. "Then we warn the others. Show them. Let the galaxy know your people exist. Let them know you're not ghosts. You're real." Zaira blinked. No one had ever talked like that before. No one had ever fought like that. For her, then her communicator beeped, an emergency Valari signal. She hesitated, then opened it. It was her old mentor, Elder Tylan. His face appeared stern and cold. "Z13, you have made a grave mistake. We will not hide your failure. Return now, and you may be spared." Zaira stared into the screen, then said, "No." "Elder," Tylan's eyes narrowed. "So you choose him over your species?" Zaira's voice was steady. "I choose truth." She shut the message off. Jake looked at her. "What now?" Zaira looked up at the stars through the station's skylight. "They'll come in numbers, but I won't run." Jake smirked. "Then we need allies. You're not the only invisible soul on this station. People are ready to see more. They just need someone brave enough to stand first." Zaira reached for his hand. This time there was no hesitation and no cloak. She was fully visible, and she didn't care. Somewhere far away, more Valari ships moved toward the colony. But inside the station, something impossible had already happened. A human and an invisible girl stood side by side. Not hidden, not afraid. Seen. The human's gift. The night after the attack was strangely quiet, Zira and Jake had escaped the hunters. For now, they hid in an old sector of the station, abandoned since the early days of human colonization. The walls were cracked, the lights flickering, and the dust untouched by decades. But for them, it was safe. For now. Jake knelt beside a dusty locker and opened it carefully. Inside were old earth tools, rusted metal, and strange black glasses. Zira watched him silently, her arms folded. Her skin dimmed to match the shadows. She still couldn't believe what he'd done, stood beside her, fought her own kind, took wounds to protect her. No one had ever done that. She didn't understand it. Humans were supposed to be selfish. That's what her people taught. But Jake was rewriting everything she thought she knew. Jake pulled out a small black device. Thin, fragile, with blinking blue lights. "What's that?" Zira asked quietly. Jake smiled. "A gift. From the past." He handed it to her. Zira looked at it, puzzled. "It's called a neurotrace scanner," Jake explained. "Earth scientists built it before the first human-Valari contact. It was a failure back then. They were trying to detect invisible life forms." Zira raised a brow. "But it didn't work." Jake nodded. "Not then, but I found one. When I was young, broken, left behind. I rebuilt it." Zira stared at him. Jake continued. "I didn't know what it was at first, but the moment I turned it on, I saw you." Zira stepped back, suddenly unsure. "So it's a machine that uncloaks us?" Jake shook his head. "No, it doesn't break cloaks. It tunes into neural waves, thought signals, emotions, patterns, not light." Zira stared. "You didn't see me with your eyes," she whispered. "You saw me with your mind." Jake smiled softly. "Maybe that's why you looked familiar. I didn't just see a shimmer. I felt you first. Then the device helped me see what others couldn't." Zira sat down slowly. The truth hit her harder than a weapon. People believed humans were blind, dull, and slow. But here was a human, who had reached past light, who had rebuilt forgotten science, who saw her not because of his eyes, but because of who he was. She looked up. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Jake sighed. "Would you have?" Zira smiled faintly. "No." He looked at her. "I didn't want the world to come crashing down. I just wanted to understand." She held the device in her hands. It was warm now, glowing faintly in sync with her heartbeat. "What do you want to do with it?" she asked. Jake looked up at the ceiling, where stars lay hidden behind layers of metal. "I want people to know you're real, that there's beauty in what they can't see, and I want you to walk in the open someday." Zira blinked. "That will start a war." Jake replied, "Or it will start something better." Suddenly, the old comm line behind them sparked. Zira jumped. A voice came through. Low, female, Valari. "C13, I saw what you did. I saw your light." Zira's eyes widened. "Who is this?" "Someone like you. Someone tired of being a ghost." "You are not alone anymore." The voice cut. Zira stared at the speaker, stunned. Jake looked at her, surprised. "You think others saw your message?" Zira nodded slowly. "Maybe they were waiting. Just like me." Outside the station, more Valari ships approached. Inside, something else awakened. Not fear, not silence, but connection. Jake stood and reached out his hand. Zira took it. No cloak, no tricks, just truth. She whispered, "Do you really believe they'll accept me?" Jake smiled. "No, I believe they'll have to." He tapped the neurotrace scanner, and for the first time in history, Zira saw her reflection in its glow. Not hidden, not distorted. Just her, real, seen, and alive. She's not invisible anymore. The great hall of the colony station had never been this full. Humans, aliens, traitors, and officers all gathered under the high glass dome. The emergency alert had spread fast. Unknown Velari signals detected, possible threat. Everyone ordered to evacuate, but no one moved. Everyone waited, because something else had spread faster than fear. A whisper, a name, a sighting, an alien girl. Walking among them. At the center of the hall, under a fading light, stood Zira, fully visible. Her silver skin shimmered in soft waves. Her eyes glowed like twin stars, and her cloak, once always on, was gone. She stood tall beside Jake, hand in his. 100 human eyes stared at her, some curious, some afraid, but none looking away. Not anymore. Zira took a step forward. Every footstep echoed. Jake squeezed her hand once, then stepped back. This moment wasn't his. It was hers. Zira's voice rang out, shaky but clear. My name is Zira. I am Velari. My people taught me to remain invisible, to survive by hiding. She looked around the room. But I no longer believe that's living. A murmur passed through the crowd. Zira continued. One of your kind saw me. Truly saw me. And instead of fear, he showed kindness. He broke every rule I believed in. She looked back at Jake, her eyes soft. And because of him, I broke mine too. Above them, through the dome's glass, several small ships began to descend. Velari hunter ships, armed, fast, silent. The crowd looked up, panic rising. Soldiers moved forward, but Zira lifted her hand. Wait. From the main screen above, a new signal came through. A face appeared. Velari, female, young, not cloaked. This is Officer Valen of the Velari Watch. I declare a ceasefire. Gasps spread across the room. We have watched from the shadows too long. Zira has shown us something powerful, something more dangerous than humans. She showed us choice. Zira's eyes widened. She didn't expect that. More Velari faces appeared behind the speaker, uncloaked, visible. Each one had chosen to be seen. Back in the hall, silence held the crowd. Then a small human child stepped forward from the edge. He looked at Zira, wide-eyed. Are you magic? He asked. Zira smiled softly. No, just afraid for too long. The boy reached out his hand. And this time, Zira was the one who took it. No fear, no hesitation, no invisibility. Then something amazing happened. The scanner Jake had built, quiet until now, flashed bright and projected an image on the wall. Glowing shape, Zira, not hidden, not bent by light, fully seen. The humans stared, and they applauded. Zira turned to Jake. You gave me the one thing I never had, she said. What's that? He asked. A reflection. The Velari ships, above, slowly pulled back. No war, no fire, only light. And the first steps towards something new. Zira stood in front of the humans who once couldn't see her. And now, none of them could ever forget her. She had no weapons, no army, only her voice, her truth. And the human who believed in her when no one else did. She wasn't a ghost anymore. She wasn't a shadow. She wasn't invisible. Not now. Not ever again.